good morning, and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenhoff coming to you live from our studio in a rainy downtown Waukesha. You can always join us. You can call, you can text at 855-752-4842, or leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We have a very, very busy show for you today. Pat Kreitlow from Up North News Radio will be joining us at 10:33, right after the 10:30 news. Looking forward in the 11 o'clock hour to talking to Reverend Mark Elsden, who is a minister and executive director of Press House and also a co-founder of Rooted Good, which is a nonprofit that helps churches think creatively about how to use their spaces. So we're going to talk to the Reverend Mark Elsden at 11:06 about repurposing churches.
Great.
And how that's going. This is based in Madison right now, so we will find out more about that. Breaking news right as we came on the air. The Associated Press reporting that Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle has resigned after the assassination attempt against former President Trump at a rally, which was about 2 weeks ago. And now the announcement, House Speaker Mike Johnson and Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries have announced the creation of a bipartisan task force to investigate this assassination attempt. The Louisiana Republican Johnson, Jeffries, the New York Democrat, say the task force will have all of the investigative authority of the House, including the power to issue subpoenas. It will be made up of 13 members, 7 Republicans, and 6 Democrats. That is good.
That's excellent.
We can actually do things together.
Yes, we should know exactly what happened.
Absolutely, and where these failures were. That was unacceptable.
Yes.
AOC called for her yesterday to resign.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of agreements on this. Again, if you missed it, just as we came on the air, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle resigning after the assassination attempt against the former president. So we will keep you updated with that. Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, now the almost presumptive Democratic nominee. She's got a lot of support.
Yeah.
In the last 2 days. It's been remarkable.
I told you this yesterday after I felt good yesterday. Like, I felt good. It felt good.
It's nice to see people uniting behind her as the potential candidate. That's not going to be official until the convention, correct?
Correct.
That's when the anointing occurs.
Yeah, she has to get all the delegates together in the room. They have to pledge their votes. Once they do that, they can remember, you've done it, and then she'll be like, I've done it,
come down and
people shake hands,
all the things,
and then it begins.
Yeah, and at least from what I'm seeing this morning. And she is vetting like 5 candidates for her potential vice president.
Yeah.
What I saw this morning was that it's down to 2 right now. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro.
Not even Mark Kelly?
Not even Mark Kelly.
Oh.
These are the last 2. Again, this is a very fluid situation.
I do have some breaking news. Joe Manchin, senator, has said he will not serve as the VP.
Oh.
In continuing coverage, he has yet to be asked to do so. Just want to let the people know we're here. Breaking news here at Matenaer On Air.
You don't have to ask.
No.
I'm not going to do it.
No,
that's okay. No, thanks.
No, I've got things to do.
No. It's okay. All right. Yes, Vice President Kamala Harris going to stop in Milwaukee today.
Yeah.
Of course, Civic Media will be there. We will be either cutting in and out. She's expected to speak after 1 o'clock this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
This will be her campaign, the first rally of her own presidential campaign.
Yeah.
She was at the Biden-Harris, now the Harris headquarters yesterday in Delaware. It was pretty great.
Yeah.
If you had the opportunity to watch it. So we will keep you posted on that as well. Lots of things we wanted to start with, though. Especially the Republican vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance.
Oh, the new guy.
The new guy. Let's get to know J.D. Vance.
Get to know you.
He was at a rally on Monday.
Yes.
In Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this kind of weird clip about Diet Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
So, Calvin, if you're ready for that, let's play that clip, please.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own.
That we'll get to that clip in a minute because that's one of my favorite clips.
That's just wonderful.
It is. You got the Diet Mountain Dew one ready to go, Cal? No worries.
I have missed that one. I will pull it up.
How about J.D. Vance on divorce. Let's start with that one instead. This is J.D. Vance comments he has made previously about what is the problem in our country, and it's divorce.
Yeah.
And this is one of the great tricks that I think the sexual revolution pulled on the American populace, which is this idea that, like, well, okay, these marriages were fundamentally, they were maybe even violent, but certainly they were unhappy. And so getting rid of them and making it easier for people to shift spouses like they change their underwear, that's going to make people happier in the long term. And maybe it worked out for the moms and dads, though I'm skeptical, but it really didn't work out for the kids of those marriages.
Ladies, you just should have stayed
Yeah.
in your violent, abusive marriage.
Because the kids are unhappy. And when that's the most important thing, is to make sure that the kids are happy.
I find it remarkable that he believes that children are not impacted by living in a home with violence.
I think that he either has no understanding of what that means for a child to live in, and not even honestly, not even of, like, let's take just for a moment, take violence out of it. And that is important to talk about. But even in a marriage where the parents do not love or like each other and there's just fighting, that has its own significant impact. You add violence to that, it gets worse and worse and worse. And for him to just blithely say, it may have some violence, there might be violence, but I know people who are on their second and third marriages, and all of them are happier than they were in their first one. And for him to just sort of say, like, oh, we're hopping from person to person, that's not how it works. And the fact that you don't know a single divorced person in your life, JD Vance, apparently,
Yeah, right?
who's ever said, man, I'm really glad I got out of that, I'm much happier now. There can be people who are upset. Oh my God, I can't believe they left me. That makes me sad, but that's a different conversation. What you're talking about, JD Vance, is disgusting.
Well, and I would be interested to hear from anyone who grew up in a violent household, even if it was only verbal violence, and how that impacted you and your view of how relationships should be
Yeah,
and what constitutes a normal, healthy relationship.
exactly.
So I think JD Vance is way off on that. Are we ready now with the Mountain Dew? Oh, Calvin's still looking. We're also going to talk a little bit about unity.
Oh, yes.
That was the big message after the tragic, horrific attempt on President Trump's life a couple of weeks ago at the RNC, which was just last week. Donald Trump said, I am running to be president for all of America, not half of America, because there is no victory in winning for half of America. On Truth Social today, there are but two parties now, traitors and patriots. So much for the whole unity thing.
They don't care about you. They care about unity within their own party. And even still, it's like, yeah, we're not, you and I, we are not in there. The only way we become part of them is if we just
acquiesce.
We get up, we put down our stuff, and we say, you know what, you were all right. Absolutely. And this whole thing of patriots. And also, tell me who were the people who stormed January 6th?
Oh, they were patriots and heroes.
That's right. I forgot.
Not Antifa first. Well, it was Antifa until they all started getting convicted.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. And then
now they're hostages and
patriots who he plans to pardon.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think would be worth your time to Google some of the people who are now behind bars and some of the things that they did on January 6th, attacking our Capitol, attacking the Capitol Police, attacking other officers who came to support them. Speaking of unity, Calvin, do we have George Lang? This was in Ohio also, was it?
Yes, he opened for JD Vance. This is a state senator named George Lang, who got on the podium beforehand and was chanting the same thing. Now they're all chanting in
unity. They're chanting about unity.
Oh, no, something far more aggressive. Calvin, can you play that?
Fight, 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 fight. We got time. Come on. Hey, we are in the fight for the soul of our nation. We are in a fight for our kids and our grandkids, a fight that we can never imagine. I believe wholeheartedly Donald Trump and Butler County's J.D. Vance are the last chance to save our country politically. I'm afraid if we lose this one, it's going to take a civil war to save the country, and it will be saved. It's the greatest experiment in the history of mankind. And if we come down to a civil war, I'm glad we got people like Schmitty and the Bikers for Trump on our side.
Well, now that's so lovely and unifying. Nothing was more unifying for this country than the Civil War.
It didn't sound like an idea about discourse. It didn't say, I'm glad we've got these PhDs who can talk about the interesting ideas of economics and taxation. No, we got bikers here who will beat you up if you don't come along with us because this is a civil war. All right. Now, granted, he did walk his statement back, Mr. Lang.
I'm sure he did.
He did because he got caught. That's how most of it works now. You say sorry not because you're sorry. You say sorry because someone heard you.
Well, they heard you, and then they weren't happy with that.
Yeah.
Because that seems like a real hard turn from last week. I'm president of all America. What good is being president of half of America? And now there are only two parties, traitors and patriots.
Oh, I know which one I belong to, I guess.
We're going to continue this conversation and highlight a couple of things about Kamala Harris, who is going to be speaking in Milwaukee today. We're expecting her to speak sometime after 1 p.m. And of course, Civic Media will be there to keep you updated. So be listening to Todd Alba joins us right after our show from noon to 2 p.m. And then Maggie Dawn, Matt Rothschild filling in for Maggie today from 2 to 4 p.m. You can always join our conversation if you would like at 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and or Twitter. You're listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the Civic Media Radio Network.
What else to do about it? Get on up, get up, get on up, stay on the scene, get on up, like a sex.
Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Sweet Calby coming to you live from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can always join us. Call, text 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. Leave a comment on the live stream if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We are getting to know Republican Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance just a little bit. We'll do a little contrast and compare to Kamala Harris, who again is running now for president, but has been VP for the last 3.5 years. Calvin, let's play that childless cat ladies clip. This is when J.D. Vance was talking with Tucker Carlson.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made.
Hmm.
And so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's
Yes.
just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete
One.
Buttigieg, AOC,
Yes,
the
kids.
entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it?
You're right. I'm childless and catless,
Me too.
and I just don't care about this country. I have no investment in this country. I don't have nieces or great nieces or close friends who have daughters or anything. Yep, I'm just
Or you don't even care about life in the future in general.
pretty much.
You just
What's the point of living? I don't have a
Yeah.
child and I don't have cats. I'm a double loser.
and also the thing that sticks with me too is the whole one, yeah, as you said, Pete Buttigieg has children, and lumping him in with the childless cat ladies. I just sound like a homophobic dig too. I don't know. Just JD Vance, he's a piece of work all around.
Troy from Mount Horeb is on the line. Good morning, Troy. Thank you for joining us. How you doing?
Yeah, you wanted to hear from somebody who grew up in an abusive relationship. I'm 57. My dad beat the hell out of me, nearly killed my mom.
I'm so sorry, Troy.
When around 5 or 6, she left him twice. The first time I went with her. The second time, I thought I was taking turns. So I stayed with him. The next day, she came to get some stuff, and he talked me into going out to talk to her, to tell her I wanted her to come home, which I did. And she never left him again.
Oh, Troy, I'm so sorry. I am so sincerely sorry. And obviously, this still rips you up.
Yes, it does. When I turned 18, I joined the service. And before I left basic training, she left him for the last time and got out of there.
Good.
Good for her. And did she go on to have a good life?
Yes, she did.
Excellent.
For the most part. She's still alive. He's still alive. I don't know what else to tell you.
Well, I think you're a perfect refutation of what JD Vance has said, that sorry, it's better for the kids if you stay in a bad marriage, especially if you need to stay in a bad abusive marriage for the sake of your children. Thank you so very much for sharing that, Troy. I'm sure that was really painful for you. 855-752-4842. If you're watching on the live stream, leave a comment on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you have a similar story that you would be willing to share with us, we would absolutely like to talk to you if you can share. Again, you can hear the pain in his voice, and
Absolutely.
he's 57 years old now.
Yeah. It shows that these types of situations have ripple effects that last for decades.
Decades and decades and decades. Absolutely. 855-752-4842. JD Vance says we're being led by a country of childless, unhappy cat ladies, referring to Kamala Harris. Apparently, she has no qualifications for anything.
None.
She's never done anything. What did he say yesterday? Oh, he said she's been on, what has she done but take a government check for the last 20 years?
Well, that just shows, does she have experience or no experience there, JD Vance? You've been in the office for 18 months. You took a government check. You take a government check now. You took a government check when you were in the military. I mean, just because they're not as big as the ones that you earn with your hedge fund or whatever you do to get that cool fleece vest, it doesn't mean that she's unqualified. And I'm tired of hearing that. That just is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm tired of career politician being used as a hit towards those who, Tammy Baldwin, Kamala Harris, who do the work and decide to dedicate their lives to public service, which, yeah, they probably have way more money than me, but they're not making the kind of money they'd make in the private sector. So, sorry, career politician, if it comes with a resume or if it comes with a history of getting things done, I don't see that as a bad thing.
Calvin, let's play that clip from Kamala Harris questioning Attorney General Bill Barr under the Trump administration about whether or not Donald Trump had ever asked the Department of Justice to go after anyone. Let's play that clip real quickly before we hit to the news.
Attorney General Barr, has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone?
I wouldn't.
Yes or no?
Could you repeat that question?
I will
question.
repeat it.
Yell it.
Has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone? Yes or no, please, sir?
The president or anybody else?
Seems you would remember something like that and be able to tell us.
Yeah, but I'm trying to grapple with the word suggest. I mean, there have been discussions of matters out there that they have not asked me to open an investigation, but
Perhaps they've suggested,
I don't know. I wouldn't say suggest.
hinted,
I don't know.
inferred.
Maybe. No.
You don't know. Okay.
Uh-huh.
That was Bill Barr, the former Attorney General of the United States of America, a graduate of Columbia University and attended George Washington University for his to get his law degree, could not understand the definition of suggest, which is to mention or imply as a possibility to serve as a motive or inspiration for.
You know what my biggest takeaway from that clip is? He understands the word grapple, but
Yeah.
not suggest. Come on, Bill. I'm disappointed you didn't have a better. Jeez.
I can't ascertain the true fluidity of your questionnaire, Madam Senator.
Grappling with the word suggest. Just a reminder.
Yeah.
August 13th. Wisconsin goes to the polls. I know, again.
We always do.
We always do. Two very, very important constitutional amendments on the ballot. We have talked about this in the past. I'm a little concerned that not enough people are still aware of what this would do and essentially consolidate the control of even more money for the Republican-controlled legislature. That's a pretty simplistic explanation, but we're going to talk about this a little bit more with Up North News Radio's Pat Kreitlow. He will be here after we return. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the Civic Media Radio Network.
Get on up. Get up. Get on up. Get up, get on up, get up, get on up, get up, get on up. Can we hit it like we did one more time on the top? Can we hit it like that one more time? One more time. Let's hit it and quit. Go ahead. Can we hit it and quit? Can we hit it and quit?
Good morning, Pat. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
I'm in a small room here, so it might be a little echoey.
It doesn't sound too bad.
Okay. Yeah, if it sounded too bad, I could try to step outside. I don't know if the noise is going to be any better there. We're trading one noise for the other, but if this works out for you, then we'll do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're obviously not in a studio, but it doesn't sound echoey,
Okay.
so it's good.
All right. Sounds great.
All right.
Thanks.
Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvinator, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can always join us. Give us a call, send in a text at 855-752-4842. You can leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Delighted to be joined by our friend and colleague, Up North News Radio's Pat Kreitlow. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hello. Doing well. I'm at the car dealership right now, and I'm in the kid waiting room. It's the closest thing I could get to a soundproof booth. So I can offer you some Mott's fruit treats.
Nice.
Some mini chocolate chip cookies here. Of course, we got the goldfish as well. I had to prove that I'm in a little kid waiting room because I don't want you thinking, I must say my Russian hosts treat me very goodly. They are not at all scripting words coming from my talking hole. This is what you have to do when your car goes on the fritz in this day and age.
Oh man! So how long do you think they're going to have you there?
I want to stand by the kids' room door just to again prove this is not at all a hostage situation. I don't know. Whatever it takes them until they feel like I've spent enough money is when they're going to be done with me.
The question is, did they have to throw children out to get you in there?
No, there were no children here, and I keep waiting for one just to kind of look and stare at me like, why is that old man in the room all by himself talking to nobody?
Don't look him directly in the eyes, honey. Let's go.
He looks lonely. Lonely.
In fact, I see on my screen here, they just sent a text message. Get this. Not only do they text you when your car is about ready, they send along a video. There's now a play-by-play of the tech with the camera phone saying, okay, I'm going in for spark plug number 1 now. And then they turn the wrench and then they move the camera. I'm like, I don't need a play-by-play. Am I paying for this?
What are you paying to get a YouTube video sent to you?
Right. So anyway, I guess when I'm done here, I'll be done there unless I have to wash dishes in order to afford the bill.
Well, keep us posted. Hopefully you'll be back in the studio ready to go. I'm sure you will tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. You can catch Pat's show across many of our Civic Media radio stations. Pat, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today, and we're going to get to the constitutional amendments that are going to be on the ballot here in Wisconsin on August 13th. A lot of people still don't know what those are and what they do. Sherry from Horicon texted in and said, when I looked up the 2 amendments here in Horicon, the first one sounds like we should vote yes. Are they the same ones you have? We're going to get to that in a little bit. Don't vote yes.
Exactly. I mean, look, if you've loved the way that they've set on, nearly $200 million in money, just wait till they get the chance to sit on billions of dollars and do nothing with it. Because again, remember what Ron Johnson said, if we actually passed bills and did things around here, we'd be Democrat light.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ron Johnson, of course, famously said, I think it would be better if we never passed any more legislation at all.
Yeah.
And so far, he's been really, really successful at that. One of the best things he does is talk to Maria Bartiromo on Fox.
Oh, those two. My goodness. All the time. Just give them their own show already so that I have more things to ignore about Ron Johnson and Maria Bartiromo.
I just don't understand what he has brought to his constituents.
Oh, I can answer it. Nothing.
Oh, nothing. Okay.
Nothing.
Thank you. All right.
Nothing. No.
But I want to go back to Donald Trump had a rally over the weekend in Michigan, and there is so much news that it's really easy to forget everything that's coming down the pike and keeping everything straight. But I do think it's important to point out a couple of things that Donald Trump has said, especially regarding very, very wealthy people. Let's take a listen to that clip, Calvin. This is Donald Trump at his Michigan rally over the weekend.
And so are other. We have to make life good for our smart people. We have some smart people. We have to make life good for our smart people. And he's as smart as you get. But Elon endorsed me the other day, and I didn't even know this. He didn't even tell me about it. But he gives me $45 million a month.
We have to be good to rich people, Pat, because they are struggling.
It's not easy to come up with $45 million a month. Oh, wait, yes, it is, if you're the world's richest man. A quick reminder, you and I can write out a check for the presidential candidate of our choice for $3,300. I believe that is the current maximum contribution. But if you happen to have a spare $45 million sitting around, you can send that to a political action committee, which will basically do the same thing. So there are no rules anymore when it comes to this nonsense.
Well, and we can thank Citizens United and
Right.
allowing that money is speech, which is what they decided, and that corporations are people. Thank you very much, Mitt Romney, and that whole bunch for this, and essentially allowing ultra wealthy people to buy our democracy. That's what this does.
Yeah. And I think the let's do the math too. Between July and November, $45 million a month is $225 million. So much can be done. That's not being given to food banks, not being given to homeless shelters, to programs to help people get back on their feet, not to help Americans. It's being given to a campaign by a rich guy who also, in my opinion, has done little to nothing for this country.
And all in the name of making sure that they pay as few taxes as possible,
Exactly.
which is the one thing we ask of people who've been wildly successful, is that they pay their fair share in taxes so that we don't end up with an aristocracy instead, where everybody just inherits everything and eventually all of the money goes upward. We tried that for thousands of years, and this seems to work a little better when people play by the rules.
Well, exactly, and that is the whole. And we're going to be talking more about the tax plan that the Trump administration is putting forward and just what that would do for the average American. Trust me, it ain't good. And for really, really wealthy people, it would work really well for them.
Yeah, it always does.
Yeah, shockingly.
I know.
Talking about Donald Trump at his rally in Michigan over the weekend, and much like the abortion issue, Pat Kreitlow, they can't back away from this fast enough now that the public is finally learning about Project 2025. And we've talked about this for months, and we'll continue to talk about this. And now that the public is becoming more aware, they don't like it. And so now Donald Trump and all the Republicans are like, Project what? I never heard it. I never heard it. Project 2, maybe.
The only project I have is Project Runway. What am I doing here? I don't even like. I don't like long books. It's a long book. I don't read Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter.
The Alan Parsons Project. That's all I know. I know that.
I like that too.
Oh, ding, ding, ding.
Let's play that clip, Calvin, about Project 2025 from the weekend rally.
Like some on the right, severe right, came up with this Project 25, and I don't even know. I mean, some of them I know who they are, but they're very, very conservative, just like you have. They're sort of the opposite of the radical left, okay? You have the radical left and you have the radical right, and they come up with this, I don't know what the hell it is. It's Project 25. He's involved in Project, and then they read some of the things, and they are extreme. I mean, they're seriously extreme. But I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it. But what they do is misinformation and disinformation.
That is so reassuring that he doesn't want to know anything about it. There's nothing I love more than a person who completely lacks curiosity. I find that so comforting.
I know we're skewing old with this reference, but do we really need Sergeant Schultz as our president? Who's like, I know nothing. I see nothing. And it's such a lie. This whole thing is made up by people who are just, his administration was awash in people who have now had a hand in this. He has talked about it privately in the past. He knows what this is. And again, it's that fake moderation to say, oh yeah, there's this extreme right out there. I might be part of it, but no, trust me, I've never heard of this thing that was written by all the people super close to me. It's insulting, it's disingenuous, and I am deeply appreciative that people are now hearing and learning more about it. Mm-hmm. One of the things that really had to change when you formed companies like Civic Media, like Up North News, was that, in my news career, you typically did a story once. That was it. You said, I'm sure the viewer will get the details. No, it goes in, it goes out. You have to share stories like these over and over and over again. And as especially political communications consultants will tell you, it's only when you're sick of hearing yourself talk about it that it's just starting to sink in with some people. And I want to emphasize, it's only starting to sink in on some people. A whole lot of our friends and neighbors have no idea what Project 2025 is. But as we keep talking about what Trump's allies would do in a second term, it is sinking in. And polling, like you said, is starting to show people going, I don't want this. This isn't what this new, fresh business guy told me in 2016. No, he just became another career right-wing politician.
You know, and I'm glad you brought that up, Pat, with regard to when you said there are a lot of people who don't know what Project 2025 is. We've had people call in and say, like, people don't know what it is. My friends, it's not a big deal. You don't have to worry about it. Just because you don't know about something doesn't make it not real. So get your, and also I just want to say something as a side. I know it can be found as a joke, but I really find it very entertaining, I should say. Whenever Trump purports the idea that he's read something, he's like, I read this. When you read this, like, I'm like, you never read anything. Well, he would read it. It's got his name in it 300 times.
Oh, what coincidence.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
so odd.
Probably some pictures of him too, holding a Bible upside down. And
well, at one point he said he had no idea what was in it. This was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
He had no idea what was in Project 2025, but he didn't like some parts of it. Well, if you didn't read it and you don't know what's in it, how can you disagree with what's in it?
Well, maybe he saw the flashcard version of it where they just hold up a picture of Scrooge McDuck, climbing a mountain of gold coins and says, this is the tax part of 2025. And he says, oh, okay, I'm good on that. I'll just pretend I never heard about it.
Pat Kreitlow is our guest. He's the host of Up North News Radio from 6 to 8 a.m. on a number of stations across the vast Civic Media radio network. We're talking about Project 2025 right now and exactly what this would do. It would fill the government with Trump loyalists, and they would not be appointed on their expertise or their years of service in any industry whatsoever. It's whoever loves Trump the most gets the job. And I equated this yesterday, Pat, with think of your least accomplished cousin who's had a series of jobs that he can't keep, bunch of failed relationships. He's not a horrible guy, but he was at January 6th. He served some prison time. Now he's getting out and he's getting a job in the administration because he's a good guy.
I was worried I was one of those cousins at first. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
They are counting on the fact that they're picking on something that is so boring when it works properly. If I were to start talking to anybody at my family Thanksgiving table about how the civil service should be nonpartisan,
right?
They just start dozing off. You have to say, folks, listen, civil service or whatever you would call bureaucrats or whatever the case may be, you may not find them perfect, but think about what the world would be like if the only way you could have a job in government is not through your knowledge, not through your independence, but through your blind loyalty to somebody. And even if you like Trump, just give them the other shoe test. If the shoe were on the other foot, would you want Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris? Would you want them to form a government just of toadies? And of course they wouldn't like that either. So it takes a little explanation, but it's that extra time that's going to make things worth it, both for those constitutional amendments, which sound good, but are bad in August, and this election in November.
And we're going to talk about those next, the two constitutional amendments that will be on the August 13th ballot here in Wisconsin. In some cases, that might be the only thing on the ballot. Yep. And that's why it's really important that you get out to vote. We do not want these to pass.
Where can they go to find more information about it?
They could go to myvote.wi.gov.
Genius.
I know. Stay close. Pat Kreitlow is here. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Cal B, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can join us. Call or text. It's the same number, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on a live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Joined by our friend and colleague, Pat Quitlow from Up North News Radio. You can catch him on a number of Civic Media stations early mornings. He does the early shift from 6 to 8 a.m. We were talking a little bit about Donald Trump's rally in Michigan over the weekend, where he said, I don't know anything about Project 2025, but I hear it's bad.
Project 2020, who?
And the other thing that jumped out at me, Pat, before we talk about these two state constitutional amendments on the Wisconsin ballot, he really likes dictators a lot.
Oh my goodness.
He does.
Loves them, makes no apologies whatsoever. Kim Jong-un and Putin and said, they love me. They love me. The Saudis, they love me. Why might that be? And he likes to say it's because he's a tough guy. No, it's because he's a pushover. He's a tool. He's always been, that kid from Queens or Brooklyn, I forget which borough he's from, who's always tried to make it big in Manhattan, and he never got involved, was allowed to sit at the big boys table. Yep. And now he's trying so hard, and he's getting the same treatment from these dictators who just find him to be useful. Even now, during the campaign, in the way that he's always trashing the U.S., calling Biden the worst president, everything about the economy, which is actually the envy of the world right now. He continues to do their bidding, and hopefully can only do that for another 105 days.
Well, and the Russian media is freaking out that Joe Biden has now stepped aside so that Kamala Harris can run. They're losing their minds over this.
Yeah, because they thought that there was a good chance that Trump could win, which I would take issue with. But they're seeing what the chance there was, start to fade away as more American voters kind of understand that there's a generational change here going on. I think a lot of it too, though. I mean, remember, it's Russian TV, so a lot of this is just for show as well. But it does illustrate what people overseas think. When I heard him talk at the convention about that we need to restore our position in the world where we were when he was in office. I mean, I choked. It's like, wait, have we all forgotten what an embarrassment? We moved from embarrassment to embarrassment,
yes,
throwing paper towels to hurricane victims and things like that. And I think most folks between now and November will remember that's not a place where we want to be.
Well, and this quote just really jumped out at me. This is from a guy who is on this Russian state television. The Biden administration failed at everything. Name one project where they've succeeded. There aren't any. They couldn't even kill or imprison Trump. So to them, killing or imprisoning your opponent is a win.
I loved that. That is do we mean they helped with middle class taxes or job creation? No, they failed to jail or kill their political opponents. Biden has failed. Well, okay, I guess by that measure, guilty.
One of the other things they talk about in the article is that, it seemed like the GOP, the Rush, anybody who was against Biden had a strategy. And that was basically, he's old, he's out of his mind, he's sick, blah, blah. He's gone now, so that's no longer the case. And there's another quote that says, now he has to come up with something new to change the subject and draw attention to himself. And that's hard to do after all the stakes were raised so high. And I thought about that too. Like, this is really the first time we've talked about him in any sort of detail in the past couple. You usually talk about him a lot. And he's not really the news story right now. They're now in like this order. It's Kamala, it's Joe Biden, JD Vance, Diet Mountain Dew, and Donald Trump. And if you know Donald Trump's brain, if you've read any book about him, this is a torturous world he's living in where he is not the top of the news story,
center of attention,
on everyone's tip of their tongues. And he's got to be freaking out right now just to the fact that no one is sort of caring about him at this moment.
Right. He is literally old news, and people are ready to move on. And look, if Republicans somehow had done this first and it was Biden still on the ticket, the conditions would be the same. Like, wait, do we want to go with the same old guy or do we want to embrace something new? And that's what I'm sure is going to attract big crowds to, the Milwaukee area today for Vice President Kamala Harris, and will only continue to grow in the future, I think.
Pat Quitlow is our guest. In the couple of minutes we have left, Pat, these two constitutional amendments that will be on the August ballot essentially just hands over control of billions of dollars in federal money over to the Republican Party so they can sit on it and not do anything.
Yeah, this is a group that is still sitting on $125 million that was meant to clean up PFAS contaminated water. They're sitting on $15 million that was designed for Chippewa Valley hospitals. They're sitting on $50 million that was designed to fund a brand new reading and literacy mandate. Well, it's now an unfunded mandate because they're sitting on it. And what they were always stomping their little feet and pouting about was that they weren't able to put the brakes on $1 billion or so in federal pandemic aid that came in because Governor Evers was given the authority to do the allocation of the money, did not have to go to the legislature, which would have bottled it all up in the name of spending restraint, or something like that, when the money just would have gone for use in other states, like the high-speed rail money and, the Medicaid expansion money. These are folks that have no plan, who do not want to make investments in all of Wisconsin. And so these constitutional amendments are seeking permission to do that with federal aid in the future. So if you want them to bottle up more money that could otherwise help the economy or help people in need, then you'd vote yes. But if you actually like our money to be managed well and get to the people that need it, then you need to vote no on this power grab by Republican lawmakers.
And that's essentially what it is. Again, ever since Scott Walker lost his job to Tony Evers, they've been very, very cranky about that. And they want to just take away all the governor's powers and give it to themselves until they can get their own guy back in there. And then they'll probably give that all back to him, provided he's going to play nice. Maybe not. I think they're so power crazy. And so they just love the idea that it's their money.
It just comes back to the lack of a plan. If they had a plan, much like the Affordable Care Act, if there was a plan, if they had an alternate infrastructure bill, if there was a plan, there's never a plan. It's just to say no to things. And that money is eventually used instead for tax cuts geared to the very wealthy. It's not a plan.
Diane Hendricks, just an average American, everyday
Just
American.
an
Pat,
everyday
she spoke last week
American.
at the
Yep,
RNC. Pat Kreitlow has been our guest. Thank you so very much, Pat. Catch him tomorrow morning here on WAUK from 6 to 8 a.m. Appreciate it. Stay
Thank
close.
you. See ya.
News is coming up next. And when we return, we're going to learn about repurposing churches. Stay close. You're listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the Civic Media Radio Network.
Hi, Mark. Can you hear me all right?
I can, yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. You sound good. We come back in about 3 minutes.
Okay.
Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Kelvin Butenhoff, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can always join us if you would like. You can call, you can text at 855-752-4842. If you're watching in the live stream, leave a comment on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Excited to have our guests join us. Reverend Mark Elston is a minister and executive director of Press House, which is a campus ministry student housing community at UW-Madison. Also the co-founder of Rooted Good, a nonprofit that helps churches think creatively about how to use their spaces. Good morning, Reverend Mark. How are you?
I'm great. Good to be with you.
Thank you so much for joining us. On the one hand, this is bad news because, and this has been a trend nationwide for a while, that people are not coming to church. They are not attending church in nearly the numbers that they used to. And even more and more Americans now have no religious affiliation. So what do we do with all of these church buildings? And that's something that you're looking at on how to repurpose them. So where do you start with something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, as you know, we're facing kind of a tsunami of change in regard to the way people interact with their faith, the way people engage in religion in the United States, and that translates into a major shift in the way buildings and property are used, right? I mean, just the sheer number of buildings that we have, the way buildings were designed, that's all changing in terms of what is useful today. So, we start in our organization at Rooted Good supporting churches really with the question of who are you and who is your neighbor? Where are you located in your congregation? Who is around you? What's going on in your neighborhood today? Not what was going on 50 years ago, but what's going on today. And how do we reconnect with sort of the needs and opportunities that are happening in a community, in a neighborhood right now, in ways that might be able to support people's flourishing in new ways that perhaps the church wasn't involved with previously.
I mean, that sounds like a tremendous amount of work as well. I remember when I actually spoke to somebody about, we were having a gentleman on to talk about repurposing churches. They immediately got like, what are they going to do with them? I'm like, no, nothing bad. They're not knocking them down, or like they're using the space for good, and they're using it for the community, which I think, I would say church is for in the first place.
I would totally agree. Yes, although I would say that if we don't think of ways to repurpose for them for good, they will end up getting knocked down, and they will end up getting repurposed.
Well, I was wrong then.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the call I'm trying to make in a way, actually. That's why I wrote the book Gone for Good. That's why I do the work I do, is trying to sort of, raise that awareness that, in fact, if we aren't intentional, and by we meaning church people as well as cities, municipalities, communities, if we aren't intentional, then we're going to wake up 20 years from now and a bunch of these things, these properties are going to be something else. And we may or may not be happy with what the something else is that they become.
That's an excellent point. And going back to just the best way to serve the community, because much like public schools, churches have always been a hub of communities, correct? Where people join, they come together, they know each other's names, they develop community. And so that's just a critically important part of neighborhoods.
Yeah, I mean, there's not that many spaces sort of left in our world where people can get together, especially where they don't have to pay for something, right? I mean, you at least even at Starbucks, you got to buy a cup of coffee or something, right? But libraries and kind of schools, that's about it, and then there's community centers that are popping up. But ironically, we've had community centers for a long time. They were called churches. It's where people go for small food pantries. It's where they go, where the Girl Scout troop meets, or where AA groups meet, or where I live in Madison, voting. A lot of our polling places are churches.
Yes.
And where are we going to vote when some of these places are gone and closed? Yeah.
That's an excellent point.
I know I grew up here in Waukesha, and the church I went to, St. Mary's, right across the way. Our meeting area was in the basement, and it was called the community room. That was the official title of it. And Reverend, is it sort of a pardon the term, revelation for people to understand that the building can be used for something? Because what we see now, we see a lot of churches becoming abandoned spaces and then being taken over by other churches. Does it seem like to some, they might say, well, it's a church, so let a church move in because it's a church. It's got church stuff. Whereas you can say, no, we can do so much more with it. We've got so much space. It's a beautiful decoration. Is it like really opening the eyes to people to the ability to use the space you have?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the realities is that there aren't enough new churches to fill in and replace sort of churches that are closing. So that model, what you describe, was very common. A church building became home to another church, right? But we've now reached a point where there are more churches closing every year than they're opening. So there aren't enough to kind of come in and fill that. So then, yeah, you have this question of what else can it be? And I would argue, I guess, that, as a Christian, at least a Christian pastor, the early church has always done things that are not just simply getting together to sing songs and hear a sermon preached. They've done all sorts of socially oriented activity from the very, very beginning, from the time of Jesus. And so what I think I'm really sort of suggesting is we just think about that a little bit more expansively. And then how can these facilities that we have be put to use for the good of communities, beyond getting together for an hour on a Sunday morning? Nothing wrong with that at all. I'm a pastor. I love worship. But, beyond that, what else can we be doing? Yeah. And in addition, or in replacement of that, in some cases where the church is actually closed, what else can we be doing with these facilities?
It's about walking the walk.
Absolutely, exactly. Living it, being community, religious community together in neighborhoods, just living it as opposed to just talking about it, right? And many churches have been doing that for a long time. That's not new, but there is a bit of a sort of eye-opening awareness of that we can do some of this in newer ways or even more expansive ways. And at Rooted Good, we focus a lot on what we call social enterprise, which are activities that are both missional and mission aligned and serving the neighborhood, but that also have some sort of revenue generating component to them so that they're a little bit more financially sustainable and viable. And that often looks like affordable housing projects, or we've seen churches turning food pantries into community owned grocery co-ops, sort of grocery stores actually, that really really go after the food desert in their neighborhood. But it's actually a much bigger operation than a food pantry. Daycare centers, of course, have been something that churches have done for a while, and sort of specialized versions of that. A church that went through our program in Alabama now has 9 entrepreneurs using their space. They're like a small business entrepreneur incubator in their church. 9 different small businesses are now starting out of the church facility. Like, really exciting. So those sorts of things are, just really thinking much more expansively about what it means to be a faith community present in a neighborhood.
Reverend, I will be honest and open with you. I am a man without faith, but what I love hearing is utilizing these spaces to address issues that we talk about all the time. We talk about childcare. We talk about access. Food deserts is a very important thing. And the growing of young minds into business owners and entrepreneurs, or getting them vocations in other places, whether it's trade schools. And to see those spaces, churches being used for that, I think is very, very inspiring to everyone involved. And for me personally, like when I think of a church, I think of I was born and raised Catholic, so I think of those churches built in the 1800s, early 1900s, stonemason, But now churches are. I want to say this without being disrespectful, but like you have these gigantic spaces, these gigantic, they have mega churches with a theater and a school and the stuff like that, and it feels like what you're doing is trying to provide something a little more on the ground for everyone involved. Because imagine you have to be a member of those churches to take part in those services and programs, but this is something for everyone. Come in, no matter who you are, what you believe, where you come from, get the help, get the food, whatever you need. I think that's absolutely wonderful. And does that spread to is it interfaith? It's got to be interfaith, I imagine, right?
Yeah, I think most of these projects end up being somewhat interfaith, or at least they involve partnership, right? So this is not something we always tell churches, not something that churches do completely on their own. Churches are not going to build an affordable housing project with just their members. They're going to need to partner with folks, right? And I would argue that any community or any project is stronger when it is done in partnership, and often that is interfaith or sort of across lines of whether they're faith or not faith. All of that's fine, right? I think many churches that are doing this sort of work operate out of their own faith commitments, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not able to also partner with people of different faith commitments or no faith commitment. That's why we've done it at Press House here at the University of Wisconsin, Madison campus. We offer housing for about 240 students. And we offer it out of our faith commitments, but the students that live with us are not required to have any, to share that same commitment. They're welcome to be of any background. And they know that we're a church, but they also feel very free to be who they are in our setting. And that to me feels like the strongest, healthiest way to go about this sort of work.
If you're just joining us, the Reverend Mark Elston is a Presbyterian minister. He's the executive director of Press House, which is a campus ministry and student housing community at UW-Madison, also co-founder of Rooted Good, a nonprofit that helps churches think creatively about how to use their spaces.
I was just going to say what you just said there, Reverend, is even though I don't have faith anymore, I understand it. And it sounds like the perfect reflection of Christ's love. What you just said is just helping and being there, and something we need to hear more about, because we hear a lot of people taking the Christian values, quote unquote, and remaking into what they think it is. And what you're talking about, I think, is the truest form, which is just being there for all, period.
Yeah, I'll say amen to that.
Well, wasn't it that Jesus who said, however you treat the least of me?
Yeah,
Something along those
absolutely.
lines, and
Right.
right, love your neighbor,
He
and
said some good stuff.
it was all kind of pretty positive,
Yeah.
positive messaging
Mhm.
from the whole New Testament.
Yeah.
If you have questions or comments, you can join us 855-752-4842. The Reverend Mark Elston is our guest. We will be back after a few brief messages. Stay close. You're listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the Civic Media Radio Network.
What else to do about it?
She's a Christian, but she doesn't.
When I see the connection, though I see, I don't stare. Though I see, I don't stare.
Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Kelby on the board. Coming to you from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can always join us. Call or text. Same number, 855-752-4842, 855-75-Civic. Leave a comment if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or what used to be Twitter. Our guest is the Reverend Mark Elston. He's a minister, executive director of Press House, a campus ministry, student housing community at UW-Madison, also co-founded Rooted Good, which is a nonprofit that helps churches think creatively about how to use their spaces. I have a text I wanted to share with you, Reverend, from Dave in New Berlin. I'm an atheist, but I respect how important faith is to those who practice. What's your advice to an atheist that respects your cause?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I would say that this is an area where the sort of the use of church spaces is an area where there's a lot of potential collaboration and partnership and shared interest between people of different faiths or no faith. I think what we're proposing is essentially thinking about the use of space for the good of communities, and that can become from a faith perspective or not. And in many cases, those relationships across those lines lead to better outcomes. So I often feel like that municipalities and just neighborhood leaders can really make a difference in thinking about spaces as they come available. So if a church in your neighborhood is closing or rethinking about its use and how it might use its land or its property, support it, get involved with it, figure out, offer suggestions, be a sort of a part of the solution. Unfortunately, we have so often tension between, people of faith and people of not of faith in ways that we really don't need to. And I can understand why that happens, but in this instance, very often there's a lot of alignment where we can move forward together.
Well, and as you've said, this is about benefiting the entire community. This is about benefiting the neighborhood and doing what is best for our neighbors and people who live in that community. So there should be room enough for all of us to take part in something like that. Greg from Waukesha is on the line. Thank you for joining us, Greg. What did you want to say?
Jane and Greg and Pastor, hello. Good morning to you. Pastor, first of all, Reverend, first of all, I love what you have to say, because it essentially all boils down to Acts 2, right? Acts chapter 2, the Acts 2 church. And so I love that. A couple of quick just questions, if I may. One would be, I do work with a lot of college students here in Waukesha and university students. And how best would you say to guide them to a faith relationship? And then my second question is, do you think that mega churches can actually produce harm for, do you think there can be any harm done with, through a mega church kind of setup? I'm just curious what your thoughts.
Appreciate your questions, Greg. Thank you so very much, Reverend Mark.
Yeah, good questions. I mean, they're both big.
Yeah, well, we only got about 3.5 minutes
Right.
left. So
How do you get
right to it, Reverend?
How do you help college students? I mean, in my experience, college students are looking first and foremost for relationship and community and meaningful friendships, and that's the starting point that we typically work with. So meaningful relationship with both friends and then mentors. And then they're also looking for conversations about meaning, what matters in life, especially maybe in this moment that we're all living in right now, but what really matters in life. And that's where I would start. And then kind of just let them, guide those conversations and listen to where they're at and help them think about, does faith play a role in it? Does God play a role in their understanding of the world and their place in it? As far as the other question, I think I would say that any faith community of any tradition can be either helpful or harmful. I'm not sure that I could say that mega churches specifically aren't, or small churches, or churches of any particular kind.
Sure.
Some of them, yes, some of them, no. I think clearly there are leaders that can be harmful. Clearly there are cultures and church approaches and theologies and teachings that can be harmful to people. There's no question about it. But that could be across a whole bunch of different spectrums. And so my hope is that more churches are helpful and life-giving and sort of love-inspiring, and less of them are harmful.
Well, and going back to real briefly to one of Greg's questions about making a connection with college students, isn't it also about the example that you set and how you live through life? If you want to talk to someone about your faith and why this is a good thing, then again, it's going back to walking the walk. And what do they see when they see you out in the world?
Yeah, and there's no question that the young people we work with, they really want to see us involved and them involved and our ministry involved in things that really matter to them. They're not interested in just simply getting together to talk about the Bible unless there's some actual application of that. And that means applying that to social justice issues, to issues of community, even to politics where appropriate. All of that, I think they want to be involved in these things, and if the faith is not applied and connected to the other parts of life, then it's pointless. Often is the way I think young people see it.
And I think that a person, I know some people are searching for community in a way where they will take sort of what will come to them the first, whoever takes them in first. I think whatever the mission of that church or that faith-based group, that's where you make your decision on, is there a decision about service and service to others of all sorts? What you were talking about, inclusion, I think that's important. And as far as Dave is talking about, as myself, an atheist as well, I respect the good works of everybody who has the heart to be helpful to everybody. So if a church is here to hand out food or hand out clothing and they want to help the people of the community, I'm there. I respect it. I love it. I don't come there's a lot of people who say like, well, atheists are mad at God. Well, I don't believe I'm not mad. It's my decision, but my decision to love and respect groups like what you do, Mark, to help the community is something that, like I said before, is a perfect reflection of Christ's love, helping others and taking care of them.
That's putting the New Testament into action.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the most fun, most exciting, most interesting way to live it out, in my view. Yeah.
The Reverend Mark Elston is a Presbyterian minister, executive director of Press House, campus ministry and student housing community at UW-Madison, also co-founder of Rooted Good, a nonprofit that helps churches think creatively about how to use their spaces. We're going to include the link that to the article I found in WPR in our show notes today if you would like to find out more of the work that Reverend Mark is doing there in Madison. And please keep us posted, Reverend, and let us know how things are going. And if we can ever help you get the word out about what you're doing, we would be more than happy to do so.
That sounds great. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you.
Reverend Mark Elston, news is coming up next when we return. Tipping and taxes on tips. We'll kick that around next. Stay close. You're listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the Civic Media Radio Network.
When I see the connection, though I see, I don't stare. Though I see, I don't stare. When I'm lost in my
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Cal B, coming to you from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. That's 855-75-CIVIC. Leave a comment if you're watching in the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that Elon continues to actively ruin. Coming up at noon, we have the news, followed by Todd Alba from noon to 2 p.m. Vice President Kamala Harris is holding her first rally since announcing she will be running for president. So she's expected to speak sometime around 1 p.m. Civic Media will be there. Reporter Stuart J. Waddles, I know, is going to be reporting from there. And Todd Alba, I believe, will also be dipping in and out of her speech today. But that is coming up a little bit later on across this Civic Media radio network.
It's exciting days.
It is exciting days.
Feeling good.
Yeah. We want to talk about tips.
I got some tips for you.
If you're a tipped worker,
yeah.
If you're a waiter or a waitress or whatever, if you are a tipped worker, we would love to hear from you about Donald Trump's proposal to end federal taxes on tips. The elimination of tip taxes has gotten interest, according to the Cap Times, from Republicans in D.C., despite an estimated $250 billion loss in federal revenues over 10 years. Trump said at a rally in Vegas earlier this year to those hotel workers and people who get tips, "You're going to be very happy when I get to office. We are not going to charge taxes on tips or people making tips."
First of all, that's not going to happen. Don't be fooled. I was a tipped worker. I worked many jobs where I was tipped, and I paid taxes on those tips happily because that's just a part of it. And don't let him push this as a tax break for the workers because, one, this doesn't affect everybody.
Right.
Not everyone gets tipped.
Right.
And two, 250, what did they say?
250 billion.
250 billion with a B, my friends, a B. That is a lot of lost revenue.
And where would that come from?
Yeah. And you want to throw on top of that the tax cuts they're going to make for the very, very wealthy. So you don't want to, I just think this is pandering to the highest regard. Plus, if he gets elected, he steps into office, he ain't going to care a lick about this anymore. Oh, sorry.
All the promises that have been made, you have a feeling won't get fulfilled.
I mean, I'm still waiting for the entire wall to be finished.
That Mexico is going to pay for.
Didn't it? Wait, Jane.
Yeah, no.
Jane, look at me. Are you telling me that Mexico didn't pay for the tiny bit of the wall that was already built?
They did not pay for the tiny bit of wall that was built.
Let's raise their tariffs.
Peter Rickman is the president and organizer of the Milwaukee Area Service and Hospitality Union. Quote, "I don't think anyone should take this as a serious attempt by Republicans to make a play for the hospitality industry. Most hospitality workers are going to see right through this as utterly failing to address the challenges. We think hospitality workers need to improve take-home income and our living standards." Yeah. Tipped income of more than $20 a month is taxable. If a person earns less than $32,000 a year, they're exempt from federal income tax at all. The Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates this applies to about half of Wisconsin waiters. So Trump's proposal isn't going to do anything for them.
Wow. Shocking.
Thousands of other employees would be affected, according to the Cap Times. Wisconsin has one of the highest concentrations of bartenders. Shocking.
What?
Of any state in the country, plus porters, drivers, and others who earn tips could see a benefit from the tax cut. Many in the industry, though, say this misses the point about imbalance in wages for people in those jobs.
And let's say in a perfect world, this happens. Let's say in a perfect world, they cut the tax on tips. You get to take home your 100% your tips. It's in your pay package. Or, I mean, let's face it, if you have cash, you're not telling the government anymore.
Right.
But point is, those people who want to keep you at a very low wage will then find a new way to put you over a barrel. They'll lower your hourly wage because they'll, well, you're making more on tips now, so I don't have to pay you as much. Or they'll start taking a cut of your tips because we've seen this before. Bosses cutting tips, keeping tips, or just doing whatever they can to absolutely, I'll say it, screw the worker. So if this happens, it's not going to be anybody but the tipped worker who is going to get put out even more. I guarantee you.
I think you make a good point. Andrew from Maine texting in, listening here on WAUK. Does Trump's no-tip tax plan apply to gratuities received by public officials and Supreme Court justices?
By the Supreme Court? Well, no, because it's a tip after. It's a gratuity after the fact. So that enjoy your RV tax-free,
Right.
Associate Justice. I won't mention your name. Rhymes with Schmlerant Pomus.
John from Menominee Falls. Well, Trump's plan is to raise the percentage of the lowest income tax brackets, so he'll be screwing you in the end, even if your tips are untaxed. How about if we just make the first $40,000 everybody earns in this country tax-free, and then ramp up the tax brackets from there?
Hey, man, I'm fine with that. I pay taxes. I'm not rich, and I pay taxes happily.
Nobody no one likes paying taxes. Nobody likes paying taxes. But I think we all like clean water and sewage systems that function and roads we can drive on and police and other things that our tax dollars go to pay for.
I'll say this again. If you want to stop paying taxes, okay, now you have to afford to pay for all those services yourself. And you want to drive on a road, you got to pay a high toll because those roads need to be looked after.
Yep.
You want garbage service, you have to pay for your own garbage service. All those things that our city or county or municipality run, you now have to pay for. You want to enjoy anything, you have to pay for it.
And that works out well for people like Jeff Bezos and Elmo.
Yeah.
They got the money. They could do that. They could build their own communities. Most of the rest of us, not so much.
Who wants to? Yeah, I don't want to live in that community. Ugh.
855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Mark from Prairie du Sac. Thank you for your patience, Mark. Good morning.
Yeah, not a problem. And the previous texter, said something that I was going to say is that this is just sort of the Supreme Court guys, so they don't need to declare their bribes as income, because before the fact or after the fact, it is still a bribe. Don't give me this crap about it being a gratuity. So just the mere fact you move it to after the fact, it makes a difference. No, it's still a bribe. I can remember 40 years ago, a woman I was dating actually was telling me that she was actually getting taxed on tips she didn't receive because the business owner was actually estimating what they would be getting in tips, and she wasn't necessarily getting that in tips. I mean, and of course that was back in the day when everybody just put cash down on the table and left the wait staff, whatever gratuity is on the table after they paid for their bill. But that's the kind of thing that's probably likely going on. Not everybody pays with plastic at the till right now, but that's what we mostly see right now. But this is just a scam. And I mean, if we want to change things, really truly change things, you eliminate the whole different category for tipped workers. You just say everybody's getting a living minimum wage, and boost the minimum wage up to what it actually should be, like they do in the European countries, where you apparently just do not tip in some of the European countries.
No, you do not.
You don't. Yes.
No. I went to England and I started to put down some money, and I got my wrist grabbed. Like, no.
Don't
do that here.
Right.
Because we pay them a living wage. And now they used to talk about living wage. They were like $15 an hour. Well, guess what? Now it has to be closer to 20 because the cost of living goes up.
And as a reminder, the federal minimum wage is $7.25.
Oh, yeah.
And it has been for decades.
And I'm pretty sure the server's minimum wage is still in the twos.
Yeah. We're talking about the former president's proposal that he wants to eliminate federal taxes on tips, and what a great advantage that's going to be for restaurant and service industry workers. And this is in the Cap Times. We'll include a link to the article once the show notes are up.
$2.13.
$2.13.
$2.13 for servers and whoever the boss wants to pay them like that. Because you're getting tipped so much, you're basically making $40 an hour. Yeah, maybe in June on a Saturday, but in December on a Tuesday, I'm making $2.13 an hour.
That's insane.
Exactly.
That's insane. Are you a tipped worker? We would love to hear from you and your thoughts on this. 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC if you want to join the conversation. Melissa Medic helps manage George Webb's. She's skeptical of both major party candidates, but she says she's worried that ending tip taxes will make problems for the payroll system. And she's concerned the one tax code change could lead to a domino effect that will ultimately hurt workers.
I mean, they start changing the tax code for this one. They're going to go in and rework some of the other language. And before we know it, the people who own the restaurants don't have to pay as much in tax either. Or yeah, this is going to end up putting the worker over the barrel, as it always does.
Another woman, Haley Tron, who's worked in many spots in hospitality as a tipped worker, said she'd like to see the industry move away from it, but noted that tips are a big reason her bartending positions have been as lucrative as they are. However, she also said that ending taxes on tips could exacerbate disparities between those who work in the front of the house, like waiters, and those folks in the kitchen.
I used to work in a place where the tips were convoluted and separated in a way that just did not work. And it bred so much tension
and resentment.
Oh my gosh, between this group and that group and this group. And then when I went to go work back there again, they said, we've changed it all. It all goes into a pot. We split it by seniority or by how many days you worked. That is how we do it. And it was so much better.
Well, I can't imagine how resentful.
Oh, no. If front of house never talked to the kitchen never talked to this. No one liked each other, or no one really got along.
Well, there's this competition then, right? Joe, Tom from LA has been waiting. Thank you for your patience, Tom. What did you want to say about tipping?
Well, I think Greg made a really good point before, which is, hey, if your house is burning down, make sure that you've paid your dues for the month, so you actually get your, fire taken care of for your house, even if it's going to set the next door's neighbor's house on fire as well, because of our socialistic fire department that we all put money into. As far as tips go, I don't know. I know a lot of bartenders and a lot of servers. A lot of them don't pay full tax on their tips anyway. So it's cash. It comes to them,
right?
And they will pay a portion of them. But so why do we need to be screwing around with this thing anyway? And I'll tell you, for a state that's now gone to $17 an hour for our minimum wage here in California, it has been wonderful. It's been tough at first. You've seen an increase a little bit in prices, but after that, the owners had to start lowering the prices again, because they realized that people weren't going to pay those high prices, and now we're moving them back down, and the people are getting $17 an hour. It has been great. It's been a really, really good thing, and that's why it actually adds to the economy when you do something like that.
Appreciate it, Tom. Thank you so much for listening. Really always appreciate it. 855-752-4842. Joe from Middleton. Just got about a minute and a half left. Joe, what do you want to say about tips?
I barely have a minute and a half before my appointment starts. But apparently you covered the tip sharing part of it while my radio wasn't on. But yeah, that's the other thing, is that tip pools get distributed to people who have absolutely nothing to do with the service. And employers use that to steal it from you. There are two things that I want to get across, though. And one is that, one of them has to do with how much people pay in taxes. And the other thing is, who declares what is who gets gratuities? Who declares whether or not something is a hospitality job? Can anybody get a gratuity? Can I get a $5 million gratuity?
Well, the Supreme Court said so.
Joe, if you're a Supreme Court justice, yes, you can.
As long as it happens after the fact, Joe.
Right. We got to go to break, Joe. Thank you so very much for calling. Thank you for listening. Stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the vast Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Dr. Slide on the board, coming to you from downtown Waukesha. You can join us, call or text 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just a quick reminder, Wisconsin's fall primary. It's coming up just a couple weeks, August 13th. So right around the corner. Make a plan to vote. We have two very important constitutional amendments on the ballot. Even if this is the only thing on your ballot,
Yes.
you need to go and vote no on these two constitutional amendments, which will essentially take the power of the purse for federal dollars away from the governor and give it back to the Joint Finance Committee, which does nothing but sit on big piles of money. Apparently, that's what they like to do. So go to myvote.wi.gov, myvote.wi.gov. You can get a look at your ballot, what it's going to look like, anything you need to know, myvote.wi.gov. Make a plan to vote and go with your friends and get other people to go with you and go to the polls.
Yes.
This is not a hot, sexy primary, except for probably the 3rd Congressional District.
Yeah.
But this is very important. So,
and just to be aware, you are no longer able to request an absentee ballot.
That's right.
You're past the deadline, so you either have to vote in person absentee. So call your municipality, your town, village, city board, or hall and ask them for in-person absentee ballot, or go on the day of. But you can still also request, and I did this already, requested my absentee ballot for the presidential election in November. So find all that great stuff, and also whether or not you are registered.
Yeah, keep an eye on that.
Yes,
keep an eye on that. I wanted to wrap up the show with something I found about 25 minutes ago that it makes me snort, Greg Bach. It makes me snort.
And to be fair, let's just all know, I don't know what this is. I'm finding out right now.
Jesse Waters.
Oh God! Next
of fake Fox News fined almost $1 billion for lying to their audience.
Wait, say that one more time.
Fined almost $1 billion for lying to their audience. Oopsie.
Jesse Waters.
Jesse Waters on fake Fox News.
Okay, all right. Darn it.
Getting a little heat after making some comments about Vice President Kamala Harris now running for president. She's going to be speaking in Milwaukee within the next couple of hours. Stay tuned here to Civic Media. Speaking about Vice President Kamala Harris, Jesse Waters, in all his intelligence, said, quote, "She didn't earn this. She inherited it. And Americans aren't hot on heirs. They like self-made men and women."
Let's hold on. I got to find that check that Trump's dad wrote to him for $1 million.
$400 million. It was $413 million Trump got from his father. $413 million.
Well, that was after he died, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about the initial $1 million, not to mention the couple million he bought in casino chips, because I don't know how you fail a casino, but Trump did it. Wow.
Let's talk, Jesse Waters, about the qualifications of Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner to have access to the White House. Let's talk about her qualifications as a shoe plagiarizer and how that translates into the most important office in the country. I'm sure Jesse can explain it to me.
Make me understand.
Make me understand. It also turns out that Jesse Waters' maternal great-grandfather was the publisher of the Saturday Evening Post. The Washington Post reports that Jesse Waters on fake Fox News got his entry-level job at Fox after being fired for incompetence at 3 other jobs. He got his job at Fox News when his mother, child psychologist Ann Purvis, daughter of Morton Bailey, publisher of Better Homes and Gardens, he got the job at Fox when his mom called an ex-congressman who knew someone at the network.
And not for nothing here, but Jesse Waters was also supposed to be the king high of comedy there too. He was going to be the Jon Stewart. They wanted to make him the Jon Stewart.
Jesse Waters?
Yes, because he was the only one who could even feign a sense of humor there. Everybody else is incapable of doing that. Their humor is mean and mean-spirited and stupid. Jesse Waters was supposed to be the fun guy. If you ever want to see something hilarious, Daily Show, Jesse Waters, Chinatown. Look that up and watch him just make a complete horse's patoot of himself. But that's what they wanted. They wanted him to be their Jon Stewart. Spoiler alert, he was not. Now he's like their main guy.
Yeah.
He is the Bill O'Reilly, the Tucker Carlson. I don't think people like him as much.
There is something inherently smarmy about him. And when he talked about how, because he was married with 2 children at the time that he met his now current wife.
Family values.
She was a producer for his show. And he talks about how he let air out of her tires so she would have to ask him for a ride home. He's talked about this on the air.
That's
creepy.
Disgusting.
Stalkery.
That's just scratching criminal right there, in my opinion. Oh, God, what a creep.
Wes from Middleton texting in, we can't all be self-made men like third generation Eric Hufty.
I mean, my dad was a truck driver. My grandpa was not great with jobs, but like I should be the president of the United States of America. I'm not a self-made. I don't know, but like this whole thing, like I don't know how you say that when Google is right behind you saying, check me right now.
Jesse Waters, thank you for your insights. I like to have a big laugh when we wrap up the show.
Oh, that was a Hardy Jane laugh right there.
All possible. Loud Lady Laughers always welcome on this show.
Loud Lady Laughers. We got to teach that t-shirt's happening.
Okay.
Matenaer On Air, Loud Lady Laughers.
Loud Lady Laughers. News is coming up next. Todd Alba from noon to 2 p.m. Vice President Kamala Harris in Milwaukee today, going to be speaking. Now that she is announced, she is running for president, and it should be exciting. We'll have coverage for you tomorrow. Jesse Waters just brought this to mind. Donald Trump likes to talk about how he surrounds himself with all the best people.
The best people.
We're going to take a closer look at some of these best people. In Donald Trump's inner circle, I think you will find it very interesting. Dr. Laura Hanks will be here with public service announcements at 11:33. Thank you, Greg and Calvin and all of our engineers. Without you guys, nothing works. Thank you most of all for calling and texting and listening. It absolutely means the world. I hope you find some joy today and you have the chance to share it. News is next. We'll see you in the morning. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.